I've said all along that President Obama needs to implement his tough economic and personal sanctions in order to send a message to Vladimir Putin. But now some American companies that do a lot of business in Russia are quietly expressing misgivings that their growing Russian operations may be sanctioned in retaliation. It's a tough mix. Here now to comment, we welcome back Bill George. He's former Medtronic CEO. He's now a Harvard Business School professor, and he currently serves on the board of ExxonMobil, which I want to add is doing a lot of business in Russia. God bless him. But, Bill George, this is a tough dilemma. United States may go right down. They may be forced into these sanctions, and Putin may retaliate, and our businesses are going to be caught in the crossfire. How do we get out of this?
Well, I think we have to be prudent at this time, Larry. We want to de-escalate this conflict. In a sense, Vladimir Putin's already lost when his man, Yanukovych, got thrown out of Ukraine in the streets of Kiev. And I think he's the one that's lost already. I don't think we want to get into an economic war with Russia. Jimmy Carter tried that with the Olympics when he pulled our athletes out, and they're the only ones that got hurt. Yes, we have a lot of American companies like PepsiCo and Boeing and others that spent decades building a relationship with Russia, very important trading partner. And I think the best way to avoid military escalation and conflicts is to have good trading relationships.
Well, I know, but the problem is that Vladimir Putin is really, I don't think he gives one hoot about the economy. Not one of his close advisors is a business person. The oligarchs don't have anything to say, according to all the news reports. In other words, they're going to take over the Crimea on Sunday in these phony elections. They are violating international law by going into the Crimea. They may violate it again by going into eastern Ukraine. They're massing troops on the border, as I'm sure you know. The United States and the European Union have an obligation to uphold international law. I don't want to go to war any more than you want to go to war, but the fact of the matter is you can't allow rogue nations to do anything they want. Now, is it possible? Let's take ExxonMobil, which is your company and a great company. Maybe, Putin won't retaliate. Maybe he'll just stop at the water's edge because he may need Exxon more than they need him.
Well, there's a lot of truth in that. I don't speak for Exxon in this case. I'm speaking for myself, but I can say Exxon's performed extremely well at Sakhalin Refinery. They've created a great relationship, and of course they want to see that continue. But all the other business executives I've talked to do too. Now, as far as Crimea goes, I certainly, it is 60% Russian. It used to be under Russia, but I hope it will not be taken over. I'd rather see it operate more like an autonomous part of Ukraine, much like in Iraq we have Kurdistan.
You and I could talk about the politics of the Crimea for 300 years. That's how long it's been going on. But we're not going to sell that. I do want to make, I got to ask you something else, but I do want to make one point. As you know, Pepsi-Cola has been in Russia for decades and decades and decades. And Donald Kendall, I knew Mr. Kendall, he made his peace with various Soviet dictators, including, I believe, Stalin, but certainly starting with Khrushchev on down. So they let him, during the Cold War, they let him continue the Pepsi-Cola operations. And I just wonder, Bill, I speculate, they may let our companies, including PepsiCo, but as you mentioned, ExxonMobil, Boeing, you got GM and Citibank, they may just let them continue. It may not come to a retaliation.
Well, I hope not, Larry, but I also think what President Obama ought to do is he ought to unite with the Europeans and get some kind of unity to put a series of pressure on Putin. I think that the IMF has stepped up with some money. I think we have to fund. Look, this guy Yanukovych, I've heard he's stolen up to $70 billion. No wonder the coffers, no wonder Ukraine's broke and they don't have any money. Bro. We need to help them out there. The other thing, Larry, if I may say, that the president ought to do, and I don't know why he doesn't do it a long time ago, is he ought to open up exports of natural gas. Right. I mean, we've got the natural gas. We're getting plenty for the next 30 or 40 years. It's good for our balance of trade. And I think if we can export more natural gas into Germany, then they're not so dependent upon the Russians.
No, I agree.
Think we don't want to have a split with the Europeans over this either.
But in limited time, Bill George, I want to ask you this. This is a free country. We believe in free enterprise. Would you please tell me, as a Harvard Business School professor and a former CEO, what right does our federal government have to tell private companies who to hire, how much to pay him, and when to pay him. This business is about dictating by executive order so-called overtime, in my opinion, is just completely, utterly counter not only to free market capitalism, but to American laws and tradition.
Well, to be honest, Larry, I think the president's making a huge mistake here. Look, the whole thing we're trying to do is trying to elevate all of our employees to professional workers. So now we're going to tell a restaurant manager, we're going to tell software workers, you know, record every hour, you have to punch a clock like you're a piece rate worker. That's not what we want to do. We want to elevate people, and we want to pay them for the work they do. And many companies don't care whether they're on the job or working at home or where they are, they're going to get paid for doing the work. That's the future. Larry, the key issue for American workers is not paying them overtime. It's getting the economy growing so we get the demand out there so we have the supply. We need more jobs, and we need more high-level jobs.
Work more hours, work at higher wages. That's the way the game's supposed to go. Please explain that to the president, Bill George. I appreciate you coming on.
I would like to.
All right. We'll talk some more about the
Larry.
Russian story. Thanks ever so much.